Vertigo Nation, this is the first episode of Vertigo for the hardcore. What does that mean? Stay tuned, find out. God damn it, somebody cue the music. Vertigo Nation, welcome to the first episode of Vertigo for the hardcore. And let me explain what that is. So, it's not really going to be too much different than the regular old schmegular old Vertigo. However, I just thought that this would be a better way to label some more, I don't know, risque. I don't know. It's still Sean. It's still Vertigo. It's just got a little bit of an edge to it. And I just wanted to put it out there differently so that if people don't appreciate my humor or my language when they see a pod titled Vertigo for the hardcore, they know that it's a little more edgy than just my typical ones. However, the content is still there. Like example, today I'm going to be introducing the topic and talking about shame and guilt. They are, like Cain and Abel. They are, they are brothers of destruction, so to say. And one of the things that I have absolutely struggled with for a majority of my life, and so I went down the rabbit hole, doing some reading and learning, and just kind of stretching the legs, I guess, but reading about guilt and shame. How much fun is that? And I can definitely tell you that as we get into this topic, I won the fucking door prize with guilt and shame, man. As I started reading through guilt and shame and all the little quirks and things that go around with it, I was like, oh my god, I feel like I'm reading my personal diary. So crazy. So Vertigo for the hardcore, like I said, it's just slightly edgier. I'm not going to filter my language as much. I'm not going to filter my humor as much. I'm not going to turn it down. So you're going to get like full on Sean Vertigo. But at the same time, I want listeners to be able to, like if they don't want to hear that, they can just skip to the next episode. So Vertigo for the hardcore isn't going to be like a regular thing. It's just when I have a topic that I feel is a little more edgy and where my humor is a little more, on edge, then I'll title it that way. So that's just an introduction to what Vertigo for the hardcore is. From there, fuck it, we're just going to keep moving on. So like I said, the topic today, shame and guilt. As everybody probably now knows, if you've listened back at least to the last episode, you know that there's some changes going on in my life, and I am wrestling with those changes as well as, just growing and trying to explore the self. I definitely am learning more and more about myself. And, it's not something that I feel like should be done alone. So I absolutely am looking into, counseling and things like that. So I'm beginning to understand the importance of maybe not trying to do it all on your own, I guess, So that's where we are at. So this is the shame and guilt episode. And as I started reading, so I guess first, let me do a real generic, like just kind of like AI overview of what it was that I was looking at. So I've always struggled, I guess, with these feelings of, I guess, always feeling guilty, always feeling like I'm in trouble, always feeling like there's, every choice. I think, because I talked about this on the last episode, I think every choice that I make, like I stutter because it's like I just don't know. I feel like there's some kind of consequence coming. I guess I feel like I'm always going to be in trouble. And, I made the comment that, I'm an older adult, man. It's, been married and kids. Like, I've been around for a minute. I'm a grandparent now. Like, who am I in trouble with? Unless I'm breaking the law and the cops are coming to get me. Like, who am I really in trouble with, But I went down this rabbit hole kind of looking at what guilt and shame are. And first of all, I think most people know that they're used pretty interchangeably, but they are actually very different emotional responses. So guilt is really, from what I learned, is really behavior, right? And it can be a good thing, right? Because it keeps us in check. I did something bad. I need to apologize and or try to make it right. That's really what guilt is. It's just an emotional response. I made this choice or I did this thing. I got mad, or maybe I took something out on a spouse, partner, friend that really wasn't theirs, but it's because I had a bad day at work. And now I feel like, oh, I should probably apologize and try to make some amends. That's guilt, right? Where shame is really attached to our identity, from what I'm understanding, right? It's that, like, I am bad, right? It's that feeling of I am unworthy or I am flawed in some way. And that's shame. And so though they do go together, like love and marriage, who remembers that show, right? That's a throwback. Anybody remember that show? Um Speaking of risque, that was great. What was that called? Married with Children. That was a nuts. I remember when we first got Fox. Actually, for the longest, when I grew up, we didn't have cable immediately, and so we had 359 and Channel 24, which is PBS, right? And it's crazy how we still remember these things. Like I even remember when we finally did get cable, which was when I was in high school, and it's like that you even remember, like Nickelodeon, for example, was Channel 34. I think MTV was like 28, something like that. Like I don't know, you just remember the weird things, right? But anyway, yeah. So Married with Children. I remember that show came out. I remember watching that, and thinking, holy cow! I think that was one of the first television shows that I had watched that was a little more edgy in pop culture. Like I hadn't seen anything like that before, so it was kind of an eye opener when that show came out. But anyway, how does that have to do with what does that have to do with shame and guilt? Probably not a fucking thing, actually. So shame and guilt, right? Guilt focusing on behavior. Shame usually more of a deep rooted, I am flawed, right? I am broken. And it's crazy, right? Because this leads to isolation, fear, this whole thing, the shame, this deep rooted shame, right? Which is crazy. So let me, I guess, tell you a little bit about my experience. So yeah, I guess I've always grown up with this thought of that I didn't know what to call it. I've always felt guilty. I've always felt shamed. I've always felt like everything that I do, like, oh, I can't make that decision. I'm gonna be in trouble with somebody, or it's crazy. And it does. It leads you to kind of being secretive, quiet, reserved, but I remember feeling this like forever. And I grew up in the church, for example, and sometimes I wonder actually if the church actually makes it worse or not. I don't know. Because obviously church is preaching that we are flawed, right? And it's like if you already feel like you won the door prize for being flawed, if your self-esteem's already low, I mean, I feel like church just in a sense then adds to that. Like you are guilty and you are in need of like that whole savior thing. You need a savior. And I'm not saying that we don't. This is in no way, shape, or form saying what people need. You have to decide that for yourself. I'm just saying that message for somebody who already feels this weight of guilt and shame, that you need something more, and then not being able to find it, at least in my experience, no matter how hard I prayed or no matter how hard I did, whatever, it was kind of like this attitude of like, for me, this is how it was for me, right? It's like, so I'm hearing the message in church, like Jesus died for your sins, Jesus, it's like, but in my mind, this is how my mind works, right? It's like my mind is like, yeah, Jesus is going to the cross. He's going to die for everybody's sins. But he sees me in the crowd and he's like, not that guy. Fuck that. Not that guy. I'm not dying for that guy. Fuck that. That's that's kind of how it was like, for me. That's the feeling it was for me. Like, nah. I'm dying for everybody, but not him. Not him. I don't know. That dude, yeah, I don't know. And that's the feeling, right? And you can't escape that. And so that's where the whole thing gets kind of crazy, I guess. And then, so my curiosity then was, right? I already know that I'm codependent. Like I've already went down that rabbit hole. I've already read all the things on that. So my my thing was then, right? Does this have anything to do with codependency? Because I definitely am in a phase in my life where it's just like I really want to I want to repair. I want an action phase. I want to be able to do something that moves me forward, and so that I'm not constantly here in this space of just feeling like unworthy, right? And so I'm gonna just do the AI overview because why not? I mean, we might as well like support AI at this point, right? But anyway, codependency is deeply intertwined with feelings of guilt and shame, right? I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, right? And it says often serves the emotional foundation of people pleasing and controlling behaviors, which is I am a people pleaser through and through. I have always been a people pleaser. And that's a huge part of codependency, right? Like my relationships have all been built on how can I serve you? And and I think that's an important message to really kind of take in and think about for a minute. How can I serve you? That's not a healthy relationship, right? But, you know, that's codependency, right? It's I want to take care of other people because taking care of them somehow then makes me feel like I'm doing good, right? And so shame, right, is again that belief that we are inherently flawed, unlovable, or not good enough. And I guess that is rooted in childhood trauma, neglect, and criticism. And shame unfortunately drives us codependents to seek validation. And how do we do that? Well, we have to seek a validation by continuing to try to people please, and that gets exhausting. I can tell you, my whole life I've spent just trying to please people, partners, and my spouse, whatever, and it just is exhausting because the truth of the matter is we first of all we can't please everybody, and and not only that, people's moods aren't necessarily driven by what we are doing. There's no, it's exhausting, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, and I feel like shame and guilt actually keeps us stuck, because it just becomes this crazy, hamster wheel. You just can't get off it, because I have felt responsible for fixing other people's problems, right? And I've always prided myself on being this exceptional problem solver. And it's true. I mean, I do have strong problem solving skills. However, um, it's not possible to just be able to fix other people's problems all the time. And however, and when we fail at that, then it just cements the feeling of like we're not worthy. And so it just spirals, right? Us out of control. Us meaning us codependents, me, Um, and then, of course, partners are going to have their moods and their days and their things. And then that's not always our fault. But that somehow, if somebody's in a bad mood, it's like my fault. I did it somehow. Like I have this like crazy, intense like control of the world and the environment. Um, so it's nuts, right? And so shame and guilt like is so powerful, so crazy. And I'm just becoming aware. I guess I've been aware for a minute, right? But just becoming aware of how this has kept me one stuck in unhealthy, I think an unhealthy relationship. And the reason it's unhealthy is because it's not built on true um I don't know. I don't want to say it's not genuine because I do feel like I've been genuine, but not when shame and guilt are driving the bus, I guess. And I also want to backtrack a little bit and say, there is healthy guilt. Like I talked about in the beginning, opening of the episode. Guilt is healthy when it's like, okay, I did this, I need to make an apology for it or make an amends for it. That's healthy guilt. But then usually what happens is we make the amends and then that feeling goes away. I think most people who are who have healthy doses of guilt, right? It's like, oh, I did that. I feel bad that I did that. I need to make amends for that. And then you do that, and then that's released. But for us people who are stuck, it's like it just becomes this rat race or this never-ending cycle of like feeling not good enough. Never, you can't ever make amends. I guess you just can't. And so now I'm in this phase of like, so how do you do that? a lot of self-talk for me. Like, okay, wait a minute. Am I feeling guilty because this is really guilt that I need to own? Or is this just something that I need to get rid of? And I also need to start, understanding that I am a good person. I am a good person who sometimes makes, shitty mistakes and whatnot, but I am wholly a good person. And that's hard too, because, you got to completely change your frame of thought. And that's tough. It's tough when you've seen yourself a certain way. But I also have to admit that I'm starting to get to a phase now where I'm beginning to understand and realize that I am not a bad person, and that's kind of empowering to realize, like, wait a minute, I'm not a bad person. And I can't control somebody's moods. And I don't need to own every mistake. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, I was always the one, like, every argument, every whatever, it must be my fault. It's got to be me. And so therefore, um you just take it and you own it. And now it's like I'm ready to only be accountable for my stuff. I'm not going to own everything. I'm not going to hold on to ownership of things that aren't mine. I'm going to give those back, I guess. To like, I don't deserve it. It's not mine to own, man. What do I want to hold on to this shit for, So shame and guilt are just, and this is a topic I would love to have people join in on. This is a topic I would really love to, kind of go back and explore and have open conversations with other people, but it also takes being extremely vulnerable. And, that's tough because it's not a comfortable place to be. And yeah, so anyway, that's really what's on my mind as I open this episode today. And so let me give you a few updates. One, last episode I talked about this group reaching out to me, this foundation reaching out to me called the Marifa, MA''RIFA, and they are, so if you didn't listen to the last episode, just a quick, I got this email from this Marifa foundation asking me if I would be willing to meet Salima Adelstein, who is a Sufi leader. I can't remember, her title, so I apologize, and I mean no disrespect. I just don't have the email opening in front of me. However, I did respond back. Finally. They sent 3 emails asking about Vertigo, asking about wanting to be a guest on Vertigo. And I think my hesitation was, is this real? Is this really happening? And so, I did a little research. I felt confident that it was pretty real. Still not quite sure about what the whole thing is about, them reaching out, but honored and did send an email back. Now, I haven't heard anything back, and that's okay, but I'll keep, the Vertigo listeners up to date on what's going on with that. So there could be something exciting. Again, I'm not too sure. I'm just kind of letting it ride and letting it play out. We'll see what happens with it. And if you're interested in learning more about Sufism, SUFI, and then ism, obviously, if you're interested in learning more about it, there is tons of information. There is information on the Marifa Foundation. It sounds like a marriage of Buddhism and Islam to me. And that's my most blue collar way of being able to explain that. But yeah, do your own research. It's very interesting. I'm very interested, actually. I would absolutely love to have a conversation because that's what Vertigo's all about, right? Everybody has a story. That's kind of like the Vertigo tagline, I guess. Everybody has a story, and it's about sharing that story and listening in on that story. So I'm open. I just don't know, how quote unquote real it is. So I guess we will go from there. And so I if anybody, again, this is all Easter eggs to the last episode. I was talking about how I wanted the Burn Dairy Cookie Witch because it's absolutely reigns supreme of those, beautiful summertime desserts. I think it was a delectable, delicious dessert is how I described it. Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to go back and listen. I don't really know. But anyway, I think that I lost my fucking train of thought, man. Like I'm just sitting here. So my studio has obviously changed as I've moved, and I've got this beautiful view, and I'm outside. I'm not outside. I'm looking outside, And, I just got lost in the scenery for a minute because it just is a gorgeous day outside. It's not too hot. The windows are open. Like, it's just gorgeous out. So anyway, I broke down and I bought the burned dairy cookie, which is I spent the $17.99 on a 6-pack of those fuckers, man, and it was worth it. And unlike the Klondike bars, I did not eat them all in one sitting. You just can't, But again, it just reminded me of just how good. But yeah, I bought the goddamn cookie. And here's the thing, this plays right into the shame and guilt, right? Because I wanted the Cookie Witch, but then felt guilty about buying the Cookie Witch. So I bought the Klondike bars because they were less expensive. But it's like, it's my money. See where this whole thing just loops around and it makes your head spin. Sounds like we got a show. Vertigo. Maybe I should write that down. Anyway, it's crazy because so there's a perfect thing that goes back to the topic, right? See how I snuck that in there and it was completely by accident. Never wrote any of this shit down, Well, that's not true. I write some things down. If you ever want to see my notes, I should post my notes for these episodes, It literally says guilt and shame. I won the door prize. Grew up in church. Those are my notes. Those are my outlines for the episode. I don't know where I was going with the grew up in church thing, other than it just solidified, I think, the guilt and shame for me. But the Cookie Witch. The Cookie Witch is what we're talking about. Let's get on topic. Holy shit. God damn. All right. So the Cookie Witch, I did spend the $17.99 and I bought a 6-pack of them. I did it. And it was absolutely delicious. I ate all 6 of them by now because I bought them a week ago. But yeah, so I just broke down. But yeah, this ties into the whole shame and guilt thing because it's like, here I am. I've got the money. I work hard for my money, right? I work overtime. I work 50 hours a week. I'm up at 3 in, like getting ready for work. Like I definitely am one of these people that it's not like I'm just like sitting around. I'm working, man. And I'm making ends meet and I'm doing the thing and I am abundant and I am grateful and all of those things. But yet I give myself these negative messages like, don't buy the Cookie Witches. Because somehow that correlates to like, you're not worthy of having a Cookie Witch. It's really fucked up when you tear the whole fucking thing apart. Like it's really like when I'm sitting here on the mic discussing it, I'm like, wow, dude, that's really like your brain is fucked, like hard. And I don't know. I don't know if you can undo that. I had a friend, and I'm proud to say that this person is my friend actually. And I remember. We worked together, and I remember going into their office one day and saying like, man, I've made a mess. I've really fucked up. And they looked at me and they said, well, when you've fucked things up, the only thing that you can do is sit back and start unfucking. Which sounds like right. But at the same time, that was the best piece of advice because if you think about it, you can sit there and wallow in it, or you can do the right thing to do because it's the right thing to do and step up and start making the appropriate changes. And I think it's the same in my mental health, right? Like I am aware, I've talked about this. I had this awakening. I am aware. Like I don't know what happened, but I woke up one morning understanding like me and my environment and like just my place in it. Like I saw myself from outside the fishbowl, so to speak. Like I don't really know how to. It wasn't an out of a body experience, I guess, in the sense of how those have been explained on all of those unexplained TV shows or whatever. It wasn't anything like that, but it really was a moment of clarity of like these things. Like here's your environment, here's your world. And here's how all of these things impact you, whether it be the ADHD that I've talked about, the shame and guilt like I'm talking about today, codependency, whatever. I saw myself and I understood for a minute there, like what work I needed to start doing to move forward. So like this awakening, I don't really know how else to explain it, And I started to realize like I can't own everything. I can't feel guilty for everything. I can't feel shame. Like I need to make the appropriate changes to start breaking these cycles, And so I had that moment of like, I guess like you need to like get moving, man. You need to move your feet. Like things aren't just going to fall out of the sky and happen. You got to do some work, I don't know really where I was going with all that. Welcome to Vertigo, where you'll have your head spin sometimes because I lose track of what I'm saying because I'm ADHD as well, and I need to fully explain all of my thoughts to you. And then I get to the end of that thought, and I realize that I lost the thought that I was originally thinking about. So, yeah, here we are. Yeah, I'll die for everybody but him, not him. As he's looking out from the cross, I can just imagine, like, there I am standing in the crowd, right? And the crucifixion's about to happen, and Jesus is like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I agreed, but not him. Not him. Not him. Nah, fuck that. Anyway, so we got to grow outside of this shame, and we got to grow outside of this guilt, and we got to grow outside of this codependency, and they all feel like they're larger than life decisions. But I'm telling you, as I'm doing the work, that it's not impossible. So I bought the cookie witches. There was the original thought. I knew it would come back if I just bantered for a minute. What? So I bought the cookie witches, and and I did feel guilty. It's the strangest thing. Like I'm driving home with them, and I see them in the seat next to me, and I'm so happy. I can't wait to like open one, right? But at the same time, there's this immense feeling of dread. Like, what did I just do? I just spent $20 on these cookies, and it's like it just doesn't stop. Even to the point where I'm talking about it here in the episode, it's like it just doesn't stop. It's like you already bought them, you already consumed them, you ate the fucking things. They're gone. They're not in the freezer anymore, man. And yet you still feel like some piece of shit because you bought cookie witches. This is insane. This is insanity, right? Like, people make these decisions every day, and I can't help but think to myself, like, man, I wonder what it's like to just go to the store, buy it, walk out, and not think about it again. You get home and you eat it, use it, whatever it is that you do with it, you just do that, And it's like, I wonder, like, what does that feel like to not, like, second guess your choices a week later, dude? Like, wow, a week later, and you're still going, yeah, I don't know if I should have done that. Well, it's too fucking late because you ate them, and you can't return them. Like, what are you going to, These are the self-talks that I do with myself, yeah, all the time. This is what it's like to be inside of my brain. Is your head spinning yet? Wow, yeah. Unbelievable. Shame and guilt. Shame and guilt. That deep-rooted feeling, I am not worthy. However, I am beginning to realize that I am worthy. And I can take care of myself. And I can, I can function in life, man. I can be normal, whatever normal is. I don't know what the fuck normal is. If you're interested in having more conversations like this, or you want to come here and talk specifically about, this, I would absolutely, this is one of those topics where I would absolutely love to have somebody on with me. So I'm putting that invite out there. Comment on this episode if you're feeling it. I think a lot of us struggle with shame and guilt to different degrees. I remember when I was going to church regularly and I had a meeting with a pastor. I grew up in the Lutheran church. And I remember having this conversation with the pastor one time, and he said, shame and guilt are original sin. I don't really know what that means, but I just feel like everybody has an opinion about it, I guess. And it's one of those things where I think like we all feel that on a degree. For me, obviously, it's an enormous degree because it impacts how I view myself and my self-esteem. That it's really embarrassing to kind of admit that you have bad self-esteem, but I guess it's the first step of having better self-esteem. I hope that's what comes. I want to feel better about myself. I want to be more confident in who I am as an individual. I don't want to second guess every choice that I make. I don't want to, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm going to pause the topic there, I guess, because the next phase is now I have identified what it is. I understand, what it is that is in front of us, in front of me. But I guess, now it's just time to do the work. So I guess the next thing to do is just offer a check-in, But that's my goal. My goal is to work through, all of this and understand too that I can't be a people pleaser. I mean, that's always going to be part of my personality. It's always going to be there, but I can't allow my mood or my day-to-day life be consumed with other people, because their moods and their whatevers are they got things going on in their life too, like that you just don't know about. I don't know what their life is like at home or outside of, if it's at work, because it's not just intimate relationships either. It's just relationships in general. You become a people pleaser, so your workmates, your friends, whatever. It's like all of a sudden you realize that all of these relationships are kind of plastic, you know, because you're not really having meaningful relationships. You're just in there trying to problem solve and like coax and make everything okay all the time. And you can't do that, man. You can't do that. So, trying to come back from that and trying to realize, again, because now we're talking about deep rooted shame. Like, I need to change my thinking and I need to change my behaviors. It's like, what would that be called? It's like cognitive behavioral therapy, I guess, for the self. Like, I'm understanding where the stuff's coming from. There obviously, childhood trauma, some deep rooted trauma in there, whatever. We can all go back and blame something on our childhood, I suppose. But, and it's not really about that for me. It's not identifying what has happened. It's identifying where I'm going, and looking forward. Sure, the past plays an important part, I guess. But it's like at this point in my life, it really doesn't matter. I need to worry about from here today, and then how is that going to impact me forward? So I can only make the decisions that I can make for today, I guess. So, hey, did I tell you I contacted the Marifa Foundation? They didn't email me back. That's probably because I waited too long. I don't know. We'll see where that goes. Probably nowhere. And that's all right. It's all right. So what's on my playlist? Gosh, I've been all over the place. There's this one band that I've definitely gone down the rabbit hole with called Dayseeker, and I'm really have enjoyed their album. I don't even know what the album's called, actually. Hang on a minute here. I'm going to pull up Apple Music and take a gander. Dayseeker, and the newest album is called Creature in the Black Night. So that album I've actually been listening to a lot. I really like that album. I've also been listening to the newest 3 Days Grace album. I really do enjoy that. I think that's a great album. The production on that album is actually sick. Like, I have the AirPods or whatever. And I don't know what it is about the production on that album, but listening to that album with the earbuds in, with the AirPods in, it just sounds incredible. So if you're a music enthusiast, or what are they, like an audiophile or whatever they call that, you're definitely check that album out. Just from a sound perspective, at least for me, I don't know. I just thought it sounded great. I thought it sounded great in the car radio too, actually. So I think the production on that album is just incredible. And I've kind of gone back to listening to some of my punk playlists again. Punk's one of those musics that I just absolutely like punk is the music I think that my soul identifies with. Like, when I listen to punk music, I just get into it. I just love it. And it's weird because I'll take a break from it for a little while because I tend to burn things out with how hard I go in. But yeah, I don't know. I can always go back to it, is my point. And so my point is that this week I definitely have revisited some of my punk playlists. I've been listening to Social Distortion a ton, especially because they just released a new album. And then I've also been going back and listening to like older punk stuff. The Descendants was one of the ones that I was listening to a lot. No Effects. Who else was I really listening to? Oh, Lagwagon. So yeah, I was just really like gone down that rabbit hole of listening to punk music. Oh, but my sister actually also shared a song with me by this artist. I think, man, now I gotta look him up. And I'm thinking about doing a whole Vertigo episode of a song breakdown, actually, because the song is absolutely incredible. So the artist name is Noah Kahan. So Noah Kahan, Kahan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but that's how I'm pronouncing it. But he just released a album in April of 26, so April of this year, called The Great Divide, The Last of the Bugs. And there is a song on there called Willing and Able. And it is an absolutely incredibly, what was I going to say? Incredibly what? It's an incredibly written song is where I was going with that. The lyrics are incredible. The music is incredible. and it's one of those songs where you have to listen to it a couple of times in a row, I think, and really let the lyrics. Um, it's a lyrical song for sure. The music is amazing too. I mean, the music definitely draws you in, but it's a lyrical song. Like you listen to the lyrics and you get lost in the picture that he's painting. It's incredible lyrics. And the dude is an incredible lyricist. So, Willing and Able by Noah Kahan, and that song is just absolutely incredible. So that song, it's not punk. It's more like a folky Americana style, like Bon Iver or Mumford and Sons. More of that kind of like style of music. So, but man, that song is incredible. So thank you, shout out to my sister for sharing that with me, and it's just incredible. So if you want to listen to anything that's on my playlist, again, Social Distortion's new album is absolutely incredible. The Noah Kahan album that I just was talking about, the song specifically Willing and Able, absolutely incredible. And then also I have been going back and listening. I don't know. So here in Central New York, we have a radio station called The Dinosaur, and it plays like old 60s, 70s music. And it's not like just rock. It's not like 95X, or excuse me, TK99 that I was talking about in the last episode. 95X is another Central New York radio station, but it's not like TK99, which is playing like the classic rock. So like Aerosmith, AC/DC, I don't know, Guns N' Roses, Peter Frampton, any of that, anything that's identified as classic rock. I mean, right? The Dinosaur is a little bit different. It almost plays, I guess, what would be like, I guess it would have been like what pop radio was playing in the 60s and 70s. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it just plays popular music of those times, I guess. So sometimes it's the Allman Brothers, sometimes it's Cher, sometimes it's the Temptations. It's just a variety. It's cool. It's a variety. So I've been listening to that more as I go to sleep at night because it's just that style of music for me that it kind of like, it's like relaxing background elevator music, I guess. So I've really enjoyed listening to The Dinosaur. But again, whatever. We don't need to go back. You get the gist, man. That's what's on my playlist. So this episode has been brought to you by... Oh, nobody. Wait, I got to say something, actually. I was going to do a joke there, but I lost it. So whatever, moving on. But anyway, I had fajita grill for dinner the other night in Oswego. And I got to tell you something, man. This is a huge shout out to Fajita Grill in Oswego. I love Tex-Mex food. I mean, and in Oswego, Oswego is great because they actually do have a lot of different food choices if you're a foodie. And if you love, Tex-Mex, for example, Azteca, which is actually an authentic Mexican restaurant, is in Oswego. I mean, you can't go wrong if you really want Mexican cuisine. Go to Azteca. But I love the Tex-Mex, like burritos, they pop up. We got Moe's, whatever. I can't think of all the ones right now. But anyway, Fajita Grill, in my opinion, hands down, and I only know of two locations. There's Fulton and there's the Oswego location. And those are the only two locations for Fajita Grill that I know of. But hands down, they are the absolute best. I mean, they beat out, Moe's. I can't even think of like any of those Southwest like grills now, and I frequented them all, Chipotle is another one. There's another one that's similar to Moe's, but I can't think of the name of it right now. But anyway, my point being, Fajita Grill, hands down. Value, first of all, like pretty inexpensive in the world that we live in right now, where like even McDonald's is expensive. Fajita Grill, I feel like, is a good bang for your buck. And they in no way, I want to be really clear, I'm not getting any kickbacks from Fajita Grill. I literally just had it for dinner the other night and thought to myself, like, this shit's fucking good. Like, these guys deserve a shout out because it is by far the best, like I said, they do the burritos, the bowls, all that shit. Like I said, like Moe's, like Chipotle, like whatever, But I don't know, man. They just kill it on flavor. Their food is fucking good. So if you're in Oswego or you're in Fulton and you're looking for a bite to eat, Fajita Grill is absolutely at the top of the list, in my opinion. One, for value, but two, taste. I mean, they just fucking nail it, dude. They're just fucking incredible. So, Fajita Girl, huge shout out to you. That was impromptu. Didn't mean to. Just, thought about that for a minute. So, anyway, if you're interested to listen to what's on my playlist, listen to it. If you're not interested, fuck it, skip it. It's all right. If you're interested in food, go to Fajita Girl. And if you're interested in coming on the show, drop me a comment. I hope that this episode has made your head spin.